All right, so welcome to the Breakfree Creativity Show. My name is Alex Inchbald. I'm an extreme artist and creative mentor. I work with some of the leading organizations in the world and the leading independent people in the world, and I help them to unlock their creativity wherever they are. And I do that by painting in extreme locations all over the world and then deconstructing what I learned to share with people through shows like this on Blab, through articles, through interviews, and through masterclasses that I run with either corporations or with individuals. Pop onto my website, alexinchbald.com, and download a free ebook, How to Unlock Breakthrough Creativity, for free. So that's alexinchbald.com. Today, I'm joined by Connie Graf. Connie, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you in a couple of minutes. So Connie is a financial advisor, but not any old financial advisor. She works with leading independents and international multi-million-dollar corporations. Connie worked in the private sector in big corporations for a decade. That was 17 years ago, and she left, and since then she's never looked back. What makes Connie unique is she combines her background in finance and her expertise in finance with her imagination to help you put your financial challenges and troubles behind you. I like to call it elegant finances, and Connie's going to talk a little bit about that today. Connie splits her time between Germany and Canada, where she lives with her husband on a ranch. So she is a real cowgirl. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about that experience as well, Connie. Connie, welcome to the show. It's a genuine pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Alex.
So, Connie, let me start off with a really simple question. I ask every guest on the show this question. How creative are you feeling right now on a scale between 1 and 10, where 10 is very creative and 1 is not kind of feeling it at the moment?
Maybe about a 6.
Yesterday
6. It was better. Today it's a 6.
All right, we'll make it on to why yesterday was a better day and today is not such a good day. So my intention is to get you up to a 10 by the end of this show. That's my intention. That's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for the tops. So Connie, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're up to at the moment? What are you working on? What's getting you excited at the moment in terms of financial advice?
What I'm trying to do right now is to get people to understand that it doesn't have to be such a daunting task, because whenever I go anywhere and I introduce myself and they ask me sooner or later what I'm doing, I'm saying finances and stuff like that, everybody just like rolls their eyes and basically shuts down. And I'm trying to find ways to open the doors for more people, also small business owners and stuff, or entrepreneurs, to understand that finances don't have to be such a scary and daunting task. And so I'm exploring this through very creative ways, which is probably a good thing, because otherwise I wouldn't be on this show.
Well, and, go on, keep going.
I just wanted to mention, you said in the intro that I'm spending my time between Germany and Canada, and I actually want to correct you a little bit, because I'm actually between Switzerland and Canada.
Excuse me, between Switzerland and Canada. So you're even closer to where I am at the moment. So I'm based in France. You're based in Switzerland. Whereabouts in Switzerland are you based?
Well, it's a little town outside of Zurich. So east of Zurich.
Okay. Yeah. East of Zurich. So that's pretty close to Germany, isn't it? How close to Germany are you? East of Zurich.
Yeah, it's not too far from Germany. But I am originally Swiss, and I'm living in Canada now. So that's why I'm in Switzerland right now and not in Germany.
Okay, got it. I got it. So I stand corrected. You're currently in Switzerland, and you spend time in Canada as well. Now, a few of us like handling finances and paperwork. We find it a big challenge. What do you see are the biggest challenges that face your clients on a daily basis?
I think it's the mindset, the thoughts and the stories that you have about it. That it, like, even if you're an entrepreneur and you're all fired up about your business and everything, finances and paperwork, that comes last, and nobody wants to really deal with it. And it's mostly because of their mindset, because they kind of expect it already to be something daunting or something annoying, something not worth paying attention to. And so that's the biggest one, that they don't really, they all focus on marketing, they focus on selling, they focus on everything else, just not on finances and not on paperwork, although everybody is in business to make money, which is kind of the funny part about it. So
what do you find? I mean, that's a really interesting point. You know, obviously we're all here in business to make money. You know, the purpose of business is to be able to make money so that you can live the life that you want to live. So what do you find are the things that your clients particularly get excited by when you say, I do this, I can help you with this? What's that thing where they go, oh, I get it. I get what you're doing now, Connie. Yeah, I really want to work with you.
I think they all look for, or they're all hoping kind of for a magic pill, which I of course don't have. But what I can do and what I can convince them that I can do is I can make it easier for them. I can show them easier ways how to do it. I can show them systems or processes that make it like they're built into their day, and they don't have to sit there for hours or spend days or whatever. And the prospect or the outlook of not having sleepless nights, for example, before tax season and stuff like that intrigues them. And because I do like numbers and I do like paperwork, as weird as it sounds, I guess I can motivate them, or I can get them excited that they want to, because most of them feel a really heavy weight on them. They really feel pushed down by it, and they want to have a solution. They just often, like I said, want to have the magic pill, which doesn't exist, but at least something almost magic. So, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So you're yeah, keep going, Connie, keep going.
I'm sorry. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted
so in
to
a sense, Connie, you're go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, we must have a delay. That's why we interrupt each other. No problem. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, you know, you just mentioned there that sometimes you're performing magic in a sense, or that your clients are asking you to perform magic. They're asking you to wave that magic wand and for their finances to be taking care of themselves. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close can you get to waving that magic wand with them? You know, how close can you get to lifting the weight off their shoulders, to helping them, you know, not have those sleepless nights?
I think it depends on the client and his willingness. And first we have to, like I said, address the mindset and the stories behind it. And the more open they are to listen to what I'm saying, and to actually really want to change and understand that they do have to do something, not sitting for hours on the desk, but at least do something and be open for it, I think I can come pretty close. But I always compare it with dieting or having a diet. As long as you know what you're allowed to eat and that you can cheat once in a while a little bit. I mean, like with paperwork, you can leave it piled up for a little while, as long as you have a system how to get it under control really quick again. So I can get close, but I don't know, probably not to a 10, because I have no magic wand. It doesn't exist. It's too bad.
Oh, that's a shame. I was looking for the magic wand. Never mind. What you're can do though clearly is
you're not the only one that looks for a magic wand. There is none.
Well,
I mean, even if you have a bookkeeper and an accountant and everything, there is still stuff hanging on you that you have to do, and you don't get out of it. It's like, I don't really like promote myself or marketing and stuff like that, but in the end, it's part of being in business. And the sad part, let's say like that, for finances is we all have to deal with it, whether we're in business or not, because private finances are an important part too. And I often see it, when you don't get along with private finances, you will have a big problem with business finances as well. So it's actually a good thing to try to get a handle on it. For more than just your business, like it has an effect that ripples over into your private life for sure.
Isn't that interesting? That observation that what you do in your private life impacts what you do in your corporate life, in your life as a business. And I think it's not just finances. My observation would be that whatever you do in your private life ripples over into your business life. Your personal, professional life are intimately intertwined these days. We work longer hours, we have less time to do the things that we love, less time maybe to spend with our family. And maybe one of the things that you can help people do is to lift that weight from their shoulders so they can spend more time with their finances. Is that something that you've observed by helping clients put processes in place, by developing systems, by organizing their lives? Have you observed how that's impacted their personal life as well?
Oh, definitely, because when they have processes in place, they do it. And like you may have noticed, when you don't want to do something, if you really don't want to do it, you procrastinate. And in the meanwhile, you're losing a lot of time. You're wasting time, basically. And if you have some habits and processes in place, you don't waste it. And so you're done quicker. You don't have the weight on you either. So you can go home and spend time with your family and feel free and at ease. And so the more habits we have, and habits around finances and around paperwork and stuff like that, the better it feels. The better we feel, and it has an effect on the family and around on everybody actually, because you're not so stressed, because it can stress you out quite a bit.
Sure, totally. So look, I'm talking at the moment with Connie Graff about elegant finances, how to put processes in place that transform your professional life and free you up to spend more time with your family. Connie, talk to us a little bit about how you do that. Talk to us a little bit about the services that you provide with your clients, and maybe you can do that by also giving us a few examples. How do you help your clients specifically? I want to understand the details of this. How do you do that?
Well, it depends whether it's a client that I see face to face or whether I see him online a little bit, but it's more or less the same. What I'm first doing is trying to figure out why he is in this mess. What I'm not doing is I'm not doing their books, or I'm not going to go and do the work for him. What I'm trying to do is the parts that they have to do to find out how we can do this easier. So first I want to try to find out why is he even in this mess, if he is in a mess. I mean, there's other clients I have, they are just starting out. They don't even know where to start getting organized. They don't know what to do. There it's almost easier because you can just show them how to get it organized and how to put what process in place. But the ones that are in a mess, just first find out why are they in a mess. There is a reason for it. And then maybe help them change the story that they have around it. And if they just don't want to deal with it, we have to come to the point where they actually understand they do have to. And it is easier to actually deal with it with the right system than not wanting to deal with it and always procrastinate. And so that's the first step, finding out what holds them, what is holding them back. And then when we have this figured out, then I'm trying to understand their business and trying to implement processes and systems that flow with what they're doing, so that it's not something that that is so separate from their business, that we can integrate it so that it becomes a normal part of their day or a normal part of their week. and getting into habits, because if you do habits then and you just do this, then you can switch off your brain that always tells you I don't want to and whatever, and you can just go do it. And this is basically what I'm trying to do, and I'm looking into all kinds of different ways on how to do this, but on a creative way. Like there is all kinds of like you can go from the angle of clutter clearing. It has a lot to do with paperwork, and finances have a lot to do with clutter clearing, because you have to clear the clutter in your head first. The cluttery thoughts that tell you, I don't want to, whatever. And once you have them out of the way, you have room to show them how it's so much easier. And then it's a matter of how willing they are to actually try it out. And they will have success if they try it out. So that's basically the process.
Isn't that fascinating? You know, one of the things I talk about when I'm mentoring and coaching my clients is that if your head is full of stuff, you cannot listen to the creative voice inside you because you're just so busy and there are so many things running through your head. And when that happens, you get totally blocked and the creativity doesn't flow through you. And when the creativity doesn't flow through you, you're not performing at your highest potential. You're not fulfilling your potential. And here are you, I hear at least, saying something relatively similar, that if you're cluttered, and it's not just your mind that's cluttered, but you're talking about the desk, which is cluttered. If your finances are cluttered, you will struggle to sort out your finances. So let's talk a little bit about creativity. And you know, how do you, because I hear creativity in everything you're saying, but that's because, you know, that's what I do. Maybe you can talk to me a little bit about how you use creativity in the work that you do to help your clients unlock their financial potential, and also, you know, sort out their finances and spend more time with their family, more time doing the things that they love doing. So how do you use creativity, Connie?
Well, in the way to not only looking at finances or only focusing on finances, but like I said before, you go into the area of clutter clearing and you find relations to clutter clearing that go into finances. The other thing is I have a certificate in permaculture design, and you can come from that angle with getting that included in organizing and finances. I was just a week in Austria, and we were talking about the moon and what influence the moon has on our body, mind, on our surroundings and everything. And so I let this all flow into my work, and to make it like a softer topic. So not such a dry, nerdy, I don't want to deal with it topic, but more a fascinating topic. And once you get the people over the hump, I'm thinking, or I experienced it too, they realize that it's not what they thought it is. It's a lot of times it's not knowing, and that's why they're afraid of it, or that's why they don't want to do it and reject it. So I'm trying to find all kinds of creative ways to help them, and it's individual. Every person is different, so I have to figure out which angle works best with who. Yeah, and then myself, I'm living a creative life, so I often take myself as an example. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a really creative life. And I want to come back to your permaculture paradise in a few minutes, and also that course you mentioned, which to me sounds fascinating. How does the moon impact everything that we do? And I'd love to hear what you got out of that course in Austria. Before we do that, let me just continue to explore how creativity impacts what you do, and ask another question. When do your best ideas come to you, Connie? When do your best ideas come to you?
When I don't expect it. For sure, when I search for them, they don't come. But when I don't expect it, or when I'm somewhere in a situation that has nothing to do with it, all of a sudden something shows up, or something pops in my mind. And often when I have no way to write it down anywhere, and I have to make sure I can keep the thought alive until I until I am able to write it down. So very unexpected.
Yeah, that's my experience of it too. You know, that ideas come when you don't expect them. In fact, they pop into your mind almost fully formed. I was doing a talk this morning at UNICEF, and I was sharing with them how the special theory of relativity came to Albert Einstein actually when he was in Switzerland, in Bern, not a million miles from you, not a million miles from me. In fact, probably halfway between us.
Halfway,
and
just
that
wanted to say.
Yeah, halfway. And that special theory of relativity popped into his mind as he was taking a tram home. So it's not just you and I who experience that. Some of the biggest geniuses in the world do the same. The algorithm behind Google, exactly the same thing, came to Sergey Brin when he was lying in bed one morning. So let's continue just on that thought. And I wanted to explore with you how your ranch impacts the work that you do. You talked about the fact that you have a permaculture certificate, and I mentioned earlier that you have this ranch with your husband in Canada, and that would make him a cowboy and it would make you a cowgirl. How does that background impact the work that you do for your clients? How does that flow through into how you help them?
Well, it makes me, I believe it makes me more grounded. It makes me more versatile, rather than just sitting in the office and dealing all day with this topic. I'm out in nature and with animals, and I look at things from a different angle. And and I always think when you try to have a broader outlook or more information or different information, something that on first sight doesn't have anything to do with what you're trying to do, then you get a better way of dealing with it, a better way, not so narrow-minded. Maybe that's I think what the impact is that it has. And yeah, so and I wanted to become a gardener, and I wasn't allowed by my parents to become a gardener, and so I became a gardener when they didn't have anything to say about it. So
well, you and I share something else in common. Then my dad, it wasn't that he wouldn't let me, but he strongly advised me not to become an artist. He said, "You'll never make money as a professional artist." Yeah. And in truth, at the time, I wasn't confident enough to tell him that I could make money as a professional artist, and that was ultimately what I wanted to do. But here you are, combining, your love of nature, your love of gardening, with the work that you do. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this permaculture paradise. How many animals do you have? What are you growing there? Is it just for you, or are you producing food for other people?
Well, right now it's mainly for us. The goal is to be to have as much for us from our garden as possible. My husband always wants to feed ourselves and not go to the store. But it's a longer process with permaculture, especially. We have 7 acres. That's about 2.8 hectares or something, mostly wooded. And it was in a really bad state when we bought it. And right now we're trying to clear it, but in a soft way. So we're using our horses for it, and sometimes the tractor. And we just had a little backhoe in for 2 days or 3 days, I think it was. But we're going slow and soft by observing and not just going in and bulldoze everything over. We're trying to go slow. So we have 4 horses right now that help us with this process. And we do have geese, ducks, chickens, dogs, and cats. And so the horses, they go and they make trails and show us actually the lay of the land, and then we follow them and clear where they go through. And then the goal is to grow food on it, food for the animals and food for us. And around the house, we already have a huge orchard it's not huge, but I mean, it's a few trees, apple trees, pear trees, quince trees. We have berries, and we feed the neighbors if they want to. We can provide apples, pears, berries, and everything. With the eggs, we can sell the eggs, which doesn't make us rich, but pays for the food for the chicken, so it's at least something. And wow. It's called Paradise or Pasture Paradise because there's a book by Jamie Jackson who talks about letting horses living a natural life and a life that is intended for them, or like they live in nature. And so we're trying to implement that as well. So our horses are not in box stalls. They're not locked in or anything. They are actually free to roam. Of course, not on our balcony or into our house, but in their area. And that gives a different atmosphere. It gives it makes them calm, and it makes it shows their beauty more. So and this in exchange has an effect on us because they are not stressed out. They're in their element, and so we are in our element when we are there.
Wow, it sounds like a paradise. I'd love to visit. Everything I do is about painting in nature. So, to hear somebody talk about nature and about animals with so much passion and so much compassion is very inspiring to me. So you're listening to and watching the Breakfree Creativity Show with Alex Inchbald, and I'm talking to Connie Graf, who is my guest today. Connie is an independent financial advisor to independents and to large multinational corporations. And she has just been telling us about the ranch that she lives on with her husband, which just sounds like a paradise. So while we're talking about nature and about the influence of nature on your work, I heard you talk a couple of minutes ago about, clearing. You're clearing that land. Do you see an analogy between, the clearing you're doing and the philosophy you have in nature and the work that you do with your clients when you're helping them to clear their clutter, clear their finances, clear their documents, and help them to improve their finances? Is there a parallel there?
Now that you say it, there is one. But it's true. Yeah, it's true. And clearing the clutter, which has a lot to do with paperwork, because most people that have a problem with the paperwork is because it's unorganized. So it's a big cluster and cluttered, and it's just everywhere. And so you have to find a way how to organize it, but not in a. What I'm trying to do is not to put it in a very extreme structured way, but more slow. And clutter always has to do with what we have in our mind, and so it has to go slow. I'm a very impatient person, so I have to learn on my land to be patient, because you say it sounds like paradise. It's actually a lot of work, and it doesn't go as fast as you want it to. So and it's probably the same for people that deal with finances and paperwork. They want to have the magic pill, which means it makes poof and it's all done, just what I would want for our property. But this is not the way it has to go. It has to be a process. Your mind and your mindset has to be able to follow. So it's always better to go slow. And when you say there's a correlation between it, it's true. And you just mentioned that, and I realize that it is actually true. What I'm doing on the land, I'm kind of teaching the people with paperwork and finances.
Isn't it interesting? And just welcome to the show, Jonathan. Good to have you join us. So I'm talking here with Connie Graf about finances, and a little earlier, you and I were talking about the parallel between personal life and professional life, and now here we are talking about the parallels between nature and between the work you do in finance. Who would have thought that there would be a parallel there? But I certainly observed that, and it's fascinating to hear you talk about it. So talk to me a little bit about the work that you do in corporations. I know you work with big multinational corporations and you work with independents as well. Is the parallels between those two? Is it similar types of work, or is there very different types of challenges that your corporate and your independent clients come to with you?
Well, I find it's very different, because the big corporations, they're set in their ways often, and you don't have that much liberty to be creative. So you have to be creative in smaller areas, and or find creative ways to get them to move into a different direction. And big corporations the work is completely different. They may have a mess, and then it's either you have a free hand and you can do what you want to do. So I organize it the way I want, or there is set rules how it has to be organized. And then I have to find ways how I can motivate myself to follow these rules, even though I may not agree with them. So it's quite different. I prefer the smaller ones. The older I get, I prefer the smaller companies and the smaller, because you can bring yourself in more than with these big ones. But you mentioned that more and more big corporations have to realize that creativity has to be part of their business as well. So maybe it gets better, and and then I like it better again too.
Well, isn't that interesting? So you find you have more freedom working with independents, slightly less freedom working with corporates, because corporates are, by their very nature, they've put rules and processes in place. And yes, I have mentioned that in the past. I haven't mentioned it on this specific show, but yes, I have talked about, how do you tap into creativity in corporate organizations? And there I was this morning with UNICEF, and I have to tell you, they were brilliant. They were brilliant. And I started off by telling them that really I shouldn't be there, because my son was born yesterday, and I should have really been with my son. Thank you. So yeah, he was born at 12:50 yesterday, and the head said don't go, and the gut said go, because this is a group of people, an extraordinary group of people who can actually make a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And I was inspired by them. I genuinely believe that they can make a difference in the world, and they will make a difference in the world, and they'll make a difference in the world that my son is going to grow up in. They were actually talking about what's called the Sustainable Development Goals, the global goals, or synonymous with global goals. It's things like tackling poverty and tackling climate change and ending malnutrition, ending hunger. And these guys were just utterly brilliant. And they totally got it. There was I talking about creativity, and they totally got what I was talking about. So I have enormous hope. When I see people like that, and I see that they can tap into it and get it, that inspires me. That really genuinely inspires me. So I totally understand what you're saying, that there is a challenge, and let's be realistic about that. There are challenges in organizations all over the world. Every organization faces a challenge. But I also get the point that you're making there about the independence. And there's a freedom to the independence. There's a freedom of spirit. So in the last few minutes, we've got a few minutes left actually to run. And feel free, by the way, anyone who's watching, feel free to ask questions either of my guest today, Connie Graf, an independent financial consultant, or feel free to ask myself any questions. You can ask questions about finance. You can ask questions about creativity. My next question is going to be about that course that you just went on in Austria. I'm massively intrigued. Here you are, a financial advisor. You work with multi-million-dollar organizations. You are an advisor to independents as well. And here you are going on a course which is about how the moon influences us. Can you unbundle that for us? Can you explain that in a way that at least I will understand, and I hope your clients will understand?
Well, I was always intrigued by stuff like that. I mean, I started with astrology, and I'm intrigued by astrology and feng shui, and somehow through probably certain corners, I got to to a book that was written by a lady from Austria about the influence of the moon. And she grew up this way, knowing that wisdom about what influence the moon has on us and on our garden, on everything. And that was about 20 years ago, probably, when I started exploring that. And I have a lot of that stuff and wisdom tried out in my everyday life. And so when I realized that she actually has courses and seminars twice a year, I of course wanted to sign up. And it was really, I was unplugged from social media and everything. We basically did a detox, which was really nice. I detoxed not just my body, but my mind as well, which is needed. And gave me lots and lots of ideas how I can implement that into my work, and the influence of the moon. And not every day, I mean, you probably experienced that too. You don't feel every day the same way. And it's not just the moon that has an influence to it, but partly it is the moon. I mean, he's responsible for the tides, so he can be responsible for how we are feeling with in our mind. And so I have all kinds of ideas how I can implement that, but so far I only implemented it in my private life. My husband was in the beginning a little leery, and he thought, oh, it's a little woo-woo and whatever the hell. And of course, a lot of people say that, but whether or not you believe it, it still has an effect on you. And so I was in Austria, and we were a group of probably about 25 people, and we just explored that further. We were all already knowing about it. We may have read a book or heard some speech of hers or whatever. And so we spent a week exploring it in further detail. So it was really interesting. And like I said, left me with lots of ideas that I want to go and research and explore now, how I can implement that better or more into my business work as well, into my consulting work. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I know certainly for farmers, I mean, you're a farmer, you're a gardener, you're a financial advisor. I know certainly for farmers that farmers are very careful about when they sow their crops, and they'll always sow their crops around a full moon, so it grows up to the new moon, so it grows up to the full moon. They'll never plant their crops in the dark side of the moon where the moon is receding, and they're very aware of that. I also know that, for instance, we have a massive wisteria plant outside, and I know that when we cut it, and we have to cut it regularly, best time to cut it is linked to the moon as well. So there are many things which we may not immediately be aware of, but certainly I'm aware of that with farmers and with growing things. So I'm intrigued by that and how that's going to flow into your business, how that's going to have an impact in your business. And I see an analogy again there, because you said you saw, you started with the detox, you started the course with the detox. And you said a few minutes ago, right at the beginning, you talked about how you declutter your clients' heads when you talk about finance, and how you declutter your permaculture paradise. And then there you are doing this course again and about decluttering. I'm seeing a pattern going on here in your life about decluttering, Connie. Yes. And clearly you're very, very good at this, because this is what your clients bring to you. How do you think, let's go back to corporates for a second. How do you think corporates can declutter themselves? If this is the theme which is coming through from our conversation this evening, how do you think corporates can declutter themselves? And while you're thinking about that answer, I just want to welcome Jennifer to the show. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to ask any questions if you've got any questions, either of Connie about finance or creativity or permaculture paradise, or myself about creativity. Although I have to say, I think Connie would do a pretty good job of answering questions about creativity as well. So those questions about corporations, how do you think they can declutter themselves, Connie?
Well, I think they have to become lighter. They have to not have such huge waterheads, you want to call it, and get their processes more streamlined. I think that is a big thing, because like when some employee has a great idea, until it maybe even if it even gets up to some decision maker, it's a long process, and nothing may happen because some other ones block it or whatever. And I'm thinking decluttering some hierarchy or some the process on how to bring in information and would be a good way to declutter big corporations, just to not be so a structured is good, but not so narrow-minded, but trying to be more open and let everybody be part of it. Like some corporations do it, but the majority of them I find are not doing it.
Yeah, I agree. And welcome to the show, Patty. I was just checking your profile. Here we are talking about how to declutter organizations. And I love your profile. Simple, cut the crap. So welcome to us. We've been talking about decluttering throughout this show with Connie Graf, who is a financial advisor to independents and some of the leading corporations in the world. And much of today's show is focused and turned around this idea of decluttering. How do you declutter both your personal life and your professional life so you can make a difference and free people up to what you want to focus on? So, Patty, feel free to ask any questions. Same to you, Jennifer. Would love to hear your perspective. Feel free also to jump in. If you would like to jump in and ask us any questions, would be great to have you on the show. So, Connie, in the last few minutes, I'd love to, in the absence of any questions from anyone else, I'd love to also talk to you a little bit about where you see your focus going. I know that you referred at the beginning to, it depends whether you do work offline or online, and that was in answer to one of my questions. Where's your future going? Is it online? Is it offline? How do you see your business evolving?
I'm thinking more online. At least right now, I'm trying to become a little bit more location independent. I'm living in Canada for almost 12 years, and I'm always joking, and I say I commute back and forth between Switzerland and Canada. And in the beginning, it was quite hard because I was away then from my husband or for many weeks at the time. And so I'm trying to be more online, I would say, but which also gives me the freedom to still travel around. You basically take your office with you, which we did a lot. Like my husband and I don't know whether you know that, but my husband and I, we traveled across Canada twice, and I had my office with me, and I'm very creative in setting up offices, and my clients don't notice that I'm not really in a real office, but maybe sitting somewhere on a campground on a little camping chair somewhere and doing some work. And I'm trying to be more and more independent this way, and less nailed down in a certain location. So yeah, I'm working hard on it to be more online.
So the vision is to become more location independent.
Yeah, exactly.
So welcome to the show, Imed, who just popped in, and also to Anello. Great to have you here. Feel free to ask any questions. Jump on into the hot seat. We're in the last 15 minutes of the conversation here. What advice would you give to independents who are trying to go more independent, to free themselves up and become location independent?
You have to be creative.
Thanks, Connie. That's music to my ears, obviously.
No,
from a financial perspective, you deal with finances every day. You deal with individuals, you deal with big organizations. How can they become more independent financially, location independent from a financial perspective? Financially
independent. Well, you have to have a goal, and the goal has to be bigger than your mindset or your stories around finances, I'm thinking. And then you work towards the goal. Like when I started to live in Canada and have a business in Switzerland, like really a brick and mortar kind of business, most people said it's not possible. And it was before the online world was really born. And I know a client of mine, we were dealing with the fax machine. So back and forth, we faxed piles and piles of paper, and it all worked out okay. So you have to be creative, find creative ways how to work and how to serve your clients, but also find creative ways how to make your money or your finances work for you. And with creative, I don't mean illegal stuff. I'm the most honest person on earth. There is no doing weird stuff for like creative accounting, how they call it when you do shady stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stretch your dollar more, or without feeling deprived, maybe. And so you have to find creative ways with that. Or this is actually the best advice I can give. You be creative in every way, and you can be creative with finances too. Like I said, most people tell you, oh, you can't do that, and you just have to close your ears and not listen. So.
Yeah, great advice, Connie. Really, really great advice. I mean, obviously, again, music to my ears that you're saying be creative, but who would have thought that you can be more creative with your finances? And it really, I guess, comes back to what you've been saying throughout this show, that the mindset is the critical component to this. You know, I'm certainly not here to knock accountants. My brother's an accountant. I grew up with someone who turned out to be an accountant. Just wanted to welcome Kira to the show as well. Great to have you here, Kira. Good to see you on the Breakfree Creativity Show. So I'm talking to Connie Graff, financial advisor to independents, financial advisor to big corporations, who also has a permaculture farm in Canada, and is part of this vision to move more online, to move more location independent, to do more stuff from Canada. And I also want to ask the question, so I'm going to ask you two questions here. The second one's simpler. It comes from Jennifer. Where are you in Canada? She's in Montreal. Where are you in Canada? So if you can answer that one first and then come to the second one. Are you going to spend more time there?
Yeah, I'm in the Vancouver area, just outside Vancouver, all the way in the Pacific. Yeah.
Wow.
But
that's a long way. Connie, you've been commuting from Switzerland to Vancouver.
Well, I always said commuting, like not on a constant basis back and forth, but I come twice, sometimes 3 times a year to Switzerland. So, and in the beginning, of course, more often than now. It's kind of like I'm trying to be more and more online. So it's kind of like it wiggles this way. So I'm commuting less. So. Yeah, and it's a long way, and it's 9 hours time difference, so you have to be creative there too. How you deal with 9 hours time difference between your client and you, which can be a very good thing, as I learned.
In what sense? Why is the 9? I've never heard somebody say to me the 9 hour time difference is a really good thing. Why is a 9 hour time difference a good thing? From your perspective.
I had a very good client of mine. Unfortunately, he died 4 years ago, but he always said he is so proud he has a 24-hour business, because before he left his office, he would fax me everything that he wanted to have done. And because I was 9 hours behind, that was just the morning for me. So I would get up and I would check my fax machine and I would do everything he needed to have done. And I would fax the results back or email the results back or whatever was necessary. And by the time he came in the office, it was done. So for him, it was great. He was so happy. And so he had a 24-hour business. So he always said, I have little leprechauns in the background that work for me. And so it can be very positive. It all depends, again, on the mindset. And so he was happy with it. We could talk on the phone, afternoon his time, morning my time, if it needed to be, to talk on the phone, and then he could explain himself, and then he would go home, spend time with his family. In the morning he came in the office and it was done. So for him, he said it was heaven on earth. So
isn't that interesting how the time difference can now work in our favor? And I should add, you keep on mentioning faxes, that you've had this business for 17 years. You've been independent for 17 years. You worked a decade in big corporations, and then you went independent and you set yourself up. And I presume when you talk faxes, you're talking pre-internet days, and that now you're doing the majority of it online. As you say, you're planning to take more of your business online, and I presume you're planning to spend more time in Canada, which would be a fantastic thing. Vancouver, what an extraordinary area to be living in. You must love it. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's
beautiful there, but as it's beautiful here in Switzerland too. So the whole goal is to be more independent location-wise, which we still have to have some creative thoughts how we do that with the ranch at home. Because if you have animals, you automatically are not so location independent. So But I'm sure we find creative ways how to solve that issue too. We did before when we traveled across country, we just took everybody with us. So we had a little caravan and we went east, and then we came back. So yeah, it's all creativity. And yes, it was pre-internet time also when I started. At least you could do some work on the internet when I started it, but it's not the same now. Now you can do anything and everything online. Back then it needed some extra effort, and most people were not used to it. And this particular client, he was an older gentleman and he didn't have a computer. He was and he was not ready to learn the computer. So his friend was the fax machine. So I just dealt with the fax machine with him, and his secretary and I would exchange email, or I would log into their system and do the stuff I needed to do. Yeah, but he preferred the fax machine. So
interesting.
Which shows that you can do a lot even without the internet. But internet makes it for sure easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, it's, as you say, you can do so much more online. Patty making a point there, picking up on your 24-hour workday point, that she has clients. She lived in New York with clients in the Netherlands, where she comes from, and that worked and seemed to work well for her. And I'm sure it did, because I guess some of those clients, they'd finish their workday and you could then work with them and coach them when you were in New York. Feel free to jump on, Patty, and tell me whether I've understood that correctly, or comment in the sidebar on it. So look, we're into the last 10 minutes of the show, and it's really been a privilege and a pleasure talking to you, Connie, about what you're up to and what you're doing. What do you think? We're coming to the end of this year. What does next year hold for you? What are the really big things that you're working on next year that you're super excited about, and you think, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that? Watch out, Connie Graf is coming out to play. What should we be looking for from you next year, Connie?
Well, right now I'm all fired up about the moon and the influence of the moon on us. So watch out for stuff like that. I will implement that more, and as well as clutter clearing. I will go deeper into that, how I can, because clutter clearing, also the standard clutter clearing, just clutter the stuff in your house, has a lot to do with your mind and your mindset. And it's always a reason why you have all this clutter. And the reason is in your head. And you can't just go into somebody's house and throw everything away and then it's better. That doesn't work that way. So I'm very interested in all the psychological things that go on with clutter clearing, or clearing paper clutter and all that stuff, because that will help me a lot in what I'm doing to understand the people more that right now are still resistant to understand that they need to deal with papers and finances.
Sure. And I'm always looking for exclusives on this show. So, the moon and finances, that one massively intrigues me. Can you give us any insights into how you think your insights into the moon is going to impact the work you do in terms of finances in 2016?
Yes, the moon goes through the zodiac signs. Within a month, it goes through all the zodiac signs, like the sun goes within 1 year. And each zodiac sign stands for a different part of your body. And one, of course, stands for your head and your brain. And so I'm trying to find more links, which are there for sure, how the moon influences you, and what are good days or good influences on your brain, where it's much easier for you to do the stuff that you're not so keen on doing, and other days where I just say, well, don't even bother, because it's just going to be a drag and it's not worth it, because you just drive yourself crazy, so don't do it. So more like that, so that I can consult my clients on when it's good to try to do something. There's also good times to start stuff and not so good times. And good times for clutter clearing. Actually, the moon has a lot to do with clutter clearing, so it definitely has a lot to do with finances. If you want to do the link to finances.
Now, isn't that fascinating? So you're saying that there are some days when it's better to clear clutter. There are some
Yes.
days when it's better to deal with finances.
Yes.
There are some days when it's better to, sort out what you're going to do with your financial projections.
Yes. And there is days
so
you shouldn't do it. Just don't bother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So there's days when I should just stop. I should just forget it. For me, they seem to be most days. Is that how the moon works?
That's your mindset when it's most days.
Oh, that's the mindset.
And the story you tell yourself.
Yes. I can't blame the moon for that then.
No, I don't think so. The moon is not a good excuse, at least for every day. I mean, there is days where it's really not ideal to do anything like that, or start something new, or clutter clear, and then you can blame the moon. You can say, okay, it's not a good moon, I better do this, something completely different, and then you don't stress yourself out, because if you try to do it on a not so good day, it's going to be very hard, and it's going to be painful and everything. And my whole goal, what I'm trying to do, is to bring ease into these topics, and lightness and air, and if they do it at the wrong time, then it's not working. So that's how I will bring in the moon more. So watch out for that.
You heard it here first. Connie Graf is going to be talking about how the moon is going to influence when you do your finances. So look, if you are struggling with your finances, you need to be coming to Connie Graf to talk about them, because she's going to help you find the best time for you to work on your finances in tune with an indicator up in the sky, which is going to show when it's a good time and when it's a bad time. But clearly that excuse that I thought I had of blaming the moon is not an excuse that I can use.
Just not every day.
It's not every day. So tell me, just in the last couple of seconds, what would be one tip that you would like to leave us with? What's a tip for the viewers, for people who are watching now, for people who are going to watch the replay?
One tip. I think do every day a little bit, rather than procrastinate and then try to do that whole pile or that huge thing that piled up for weeks or months shortly before it's due. Shortly before its due date. Try to every day a little bit I find less painful than trying to do it all at once, and build it into your daily routines. Build it into whatever you do, and be creative how to build it in. It doesn't always have to be like how typical accountants or financial advisors tell you how to do. So find a way how it works for you. And go with baby steps.
Go with baby steps. So baby steps with your finances.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up in a second, but we're going to continue for a few more minutes after I finish the recording. I've been talking today. My guest has been Connie Graf, who is a financial advisor. And next year, I'm going to be getting in touch, because clearly you're going to be able to help me, tell me how to take baby steps and how to make sure that my finances are in tune with the natural energies from an astrological point of view, from a lunar point of view. So I'm really grateful for you joining us today. Connie, thank you for being here. Thank you to each of you as well for joining me. My name's Alex Inchbald. I am an extreme artist. I paint in extreme locations all over the world, and a creative mentor who works with individuals and international organizations to help them unlock their creativity. If you'd like to find out more, pop onto my website, alexinchbald.com, where you can download a free ebook, How to Unlock Breakfree Creativity, the 11 ways in which you can do that starting from tomorrow. So it's been a pleasure having you here, Connie. I really enjoyed the show. And I look forward to seeing you online soon, and seeing each of you next time, when we'll be speaking on Friday morning at 9 o'clock Central European Time, and then next Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock Central European Time. You've been watching the Breakfree Creativity Show. Thanks for joining us.